Hei, velkommen alle sammen. Hyggelig å se at det kommer mange inn. Jeg heter Vegard Johansen, jeg er leder i Drupal Norge, og jeg er her sammen med Helge Notø, som også sitter i styret for Drupal Norge, linke der. Så vi skal da prøve å holde tråden i det her møtet. Så dere som allerede har kommet inn, har fått med dere at vi starter et opptak av det her. Så det har jeg nå startet. Så vi legger ut presentasjonene på nett i ettertid. Ellers bare den praktiske informasjonen. Vi har 2 presentasjoner i dag. De varer cirka i 20 minutter hver. Og vi kjører dem fortløpende etter hverandre. Så tenker vi at vi tar en spørsmålsrunde helt på slutten, når begge foredragene har vært. Da kan dere rett og slett rekke opp handa i Teams her, så skal vi prøve å holde styr på rekkefølgen. Eller bare skrive inn i chatten her. Så dere kan skrive på norsk eller engelsk, og skriver dere inn spørsmålene i chatten, så tar vi det jeg og Helge opp i ettertid. Ja, så vi er da Drupal Norge. Drupal Norge er en idealistisk forening og en interesseorganisasjon for Drupal, webrammeverket Drupal, som i år faktisk har feiret 25 års bursdag som fri programvare. Det er et ganske langvarig prosjekt. Det er i dag et av verdens største CMS-er og webplattformer, og er i veldig stor bruk både i Norge og internasjonalt. Så er det sånn at selv om det her kretser rundt Drupal-prosjekter, det er det vi skal høre om i dag, så er jo prinsippene overførbare til egentlig all fri programvare og all, kan du si, storskala samarbeid om programvare. Det her har fått ny fokus nå, for at vi har en verden der det er mye fokus på at man kanskje bør øke den digitale suvereniteten. Og her er det flere som har pekt på at fri programvare trolig burde ha en sentral posisjon i det. Rett og slett av det her med eierskap og frihet og åpenhet og etterprøvbarhet i programvare er bygd inn i selve kjernen på organiseringen. Jeg jobber jo personlig som leverandør, eller hos en leverandør. Her ser vi at mange enkeltkunder er både oppmerksom på det her, og ønsker fri programvare, etterspør det. Men samtidig så ser vi at det er ganske lite sånn samarbeid på tvers av kunder. Og igjen som leverandør så kan det være en ganske behagelig posisjon å være i. Men for kundene så er det jo et ganske stort sånn utnyttet potensial her for å få bedre tjenester med mindre midler ved å samarbeide på smartere måter. Og i det her så er kanskje det offentlige jo en veldig stor kundegruppe, og kanskje den som mest å spare også på samarbeidet bedre. Så det er sikkert mange grunner til at det er vanskelig å liksom gå sammen og gjøre det her. Du har innkjøpsregler, du har egne organisasjoner, kulturer, alt mulig sånn. Men det er for oss som har jobbet med fri programvare en stund, så er det ingen hemmelighet at det å bare ha kontroll på det tekniske, det er liksom ikke nok gjerne. Det er veldig viktig å ha noe lederskap her, og ha det organisatoriske og den menneskelige faktoren også på plass. Så i dag så skal vi høre da litt mer om noen som har holdt på med det, eller holdt på med det her ute i Europa. Det er 2 større prosjekter basert på Drupal, som fungerer etter sånne storskala samarbeid med basis i fri programvare. Vi har 2 til 3 foredragsholdere. Vi har først Greg Harvey, en leder og byråeier, som jobber særlig med noe som heter LocalGov, som er i Storbritannia og Frankrike. Og så etter det har vi en presentasjon av Esmeralda Heihoff, og Richard, som kommer fra Disse, som er en stor offentlig IT-tjenesteleverandør i Nederland. Jeg tror ikke vi har noe tilsvarende i Norge, men kanskje Disse er det nærmeste man har i Norge, men det kan kanskje Esmeralda si mer. Men med det så slår jeg over til engelsk. And with that, I'll switch to English. And the intro is done, and I'll hand the digital floor over to you, Greg. So go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
thanks.
try and share my screen. I heard my name. I hope you said something nice.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me to talk this morning. Can everybody see the slides? Yeah, okay, great. So let me get this in the right place. So I'm just going to talk a little bit this morning about an initiative called LocalGov Drupal. Before I start, I'll just present myself a little bit. So my name is Greg, as you know. I'm the director / president of a company called Codenigma, which is a Drupal specialist. We've been working with Drupal since we were founded in 2010, and we're based in the UK and France, so that we have a foot in Europe still after Brexit, obviously. I'm not actually here from the LocalGov Drupal team. I think it's important to stress that I'm here as a LocalGov Drupal certified supplier, and we've done a lot of work with LocalGov Drupal, but I don't actually represent the organization, but I will give you lots of information about that organization and who to contact as part of this talk. So I'd just like to quickly start by talking about what a Drupal distribution is, because LocalGov Drupal is what we call a distribution. Now, people who know Drupal already are probably thinking, but distributions are dead, because they've got a new thing now, which is called recipes, and LocalGov Drupal will be moving to a recipe format in the near future. But for now, it's what we call a distribution. And distributions historically in open source land, as it were, are collections of software to meet a specific niche need. Sorry. So in the context of Drupal, they tend to be a collection of themes, modules, libraries, and installation profiles to do a specific job. Themes are the designs, the skin of the website. Modules are extra bits of functionality, integrations, and things like that. Libraries are supporting code. And installation profiles are ways to install all of those things at once to create an application that serves a specific purpose. So LocalGov Drupal is one of these distributions, but it's not the only distribution. So Drupal is actually a product that has lots of different distributions. So on this slide here, we have a few examples. On the left, we have a product called Open Social, which has been developed in the Netherlands. This is a website that we built for the Office of National Statistics in the UK. And Open Social lets you build social networks out of the box and discussion forums and so on. It's a very nice piece of software. The next one is one called Opinio, which is a learning management system. I believe it's developed in Switzerland. And it's also very widely used. Open Intranet is the next one, which, as you might guess from the name, is a distribution for having pop-up out-of-the-box open source intranets. That's developed by a Polish company. Then we have one called GovCMS, which has actually been developed in Australia by the Australian government, actually, to use for Australian national government websites. So it's a Drupal-based distribution for Australian government websites. And then finally, on the right, we have our distribution that I'm here to talk to you about today. This is one of the incarnations of LocalGov Drupal, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, which is a district of London, and they are using the LocalGov Drupal distribution. But the point there is that actually there isn't just LocalGov Drupal. If you explore the Drupal landscape a little bit more widely, there's actually many distributions from many different jobs. So, LocalGov Drupal itself, how did it come about and what is it? So, this was initially a collaboration between two municipalities in the UK. In the UK, we call anything that is local government a council. So you may hear me use the word council quite a lot. When I talk about a council, I mean kind of any local government structure which is looking after the services for an area. It could be as small as a village and as big as a whole region, but we call them all councils. So essentially, there were two councils involved. And a man called Will Callaghan, who still works for Open Digital Cooperative that I'll talk about shortly. And Will was a digital project manager product lead working on websites for councils. He'd formerly worked in gov.uk, and he was actually on a project. He was working with Brighton and Hove, which is a city on the south coast of England, on their new website. So he went into Brighton, big plans, big budget. They built a lovely website. Everything was very nice. It was all done in Drupal. As they were winding up, they got most of the work done, but not everything, as is often the case. It was an agile project, so they had probably done 80% of what they wanted to do, and all of the most important things were done. That project was winding down, and Will went to work for Croydon, which is another borough of London, where we actually had a DrupalCon many years ago now. Croydon wanted to build a new website, and they'd already selected a content management system called Drupal. And Will suddenly realized that he was stuck in Groundhog Day, and he had the idea that it was a bit crazy to build the same website again. So he called his old colleagues in Brighton and said, guys, we didn't quite manage to finish the website with you. Croydon basically want the same thing. Why don't we take the money that Croydon have for their website and take your website, finish the things you didn't manage to finish and give them back to you. And at the same time, let Croydon use your code to start their website at a much higher point. Or at least let's have a conversation about it. And to Will's absolute amazement, and hats off to the leadership at Brighton and Hove, they said yes. And so there was a meeting, there were discussions, there was an agreement on the project plan, and essentially Brighton and Hove and Croydon agreed to have, in scare quotes, the same website, but actually with different skins on top, if you like. But they basically realized that they would save a lot of money for their local authority taxpayers, and end up both with a better system if they collaborated and worked together. And that was the beginning of LocalGov Drupal, just those two councils. But what it grew into was a centrally funded distribution, which is now used. The number keeps going up. I actually updated this slide yesterday. It's now used by over 70 municipalities across the UK and Ireland. And there's literally hundreds of deployments, because it's not only being used by local governments, because if you think about it, I think there's 73 subscribed councils at the moment. There's probably another 20 or so that haven't subscribed. But there's also organizations like, for example, housing associations that are using LocalGov Drupal, because if you think about it, a tower block is a small community. It has all the same needs as a village or a small town. So actually, we're finding that it's even being used beyond its original use case. So that's very interesting. We're also now seeing some international versions popping up. I personally worked on setting up the French version of LocalGov Drupal, which is how I met Helge, because I was actually presenting that in Belgium in January. And there's now an Austrian effort underway as well. If you want to find out more about the original project, I've put the web address there in the slides, which I'm sure will be shared later. And the reason it's working so well is exactly this. Every single municipality has exactly the same challenges. I mean, there's just a smattering of examples on this page. You've got social care, you've got your refuse management, you've got tax collection, tourism, parking, environment. The list goes on. We've got transport, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of examples of things where all municipalities more or less have the same issues. And so that gives an amazing opportunity for a distribution like LocalGov Drupal to be the base for a whole wide range of different municipalities, and not just in the UK. Because happily, Drupal supports multilingual content and multilingual interfaces right out of the box very strongly. We're going to look at that a bit more shortly. You've got unlimited design flexibility, so you're never actually tied into the way that one website looks compared to another. Even if you're using the same system under the hood, that doesn't mean you have to lose your visual identity. We have, at least with the base theme of LocalGov Drupal, we have accessibility right out of the box, which is obviously a hugely important thing when you're delivering municipal services. We have dozens of pre-built components that can just be skinned and used, and I'm going to look at that again in a few minutes. Mainly, most importantly, I think, from the point of view of trust in the product, is this is now proven. As I say, we're actually moving across the United Kingdom at an incredible rate. It is now the single largest content management system being used by local government in the UK, LocalGov Drupal. So it is tried and tested. So just to wrap up that section of the slides, and to give you a sense of the spread of the product, we've got the two original websites on the left there, which are Croydon and Brighton. There's one of our customers in the middle, Hammersmith and Fulham. It's another London borough. You can see that it looks quite different. And then a couple more of our customers, North Yorkshire, who are a region in the north of England, and a small city in the southeast called Colchester, in Essex. And I think the interesting thing about this slide is that historically, the big London boroughs and the larger councils like Brighton, like Croydon, like Hammersmith, they've had six-figure budgets to build big municipal websites. And places like Colchester have always been the poor cousins. They've not been able to afford a fully featured council website like the one that they have now. But thanks to LocalGov Drupal, the smaller councils in the smaller cities and towns that otherwise would probably have either no website at all, or at least a not very good website, are able to actually have almost the same website as a council that's historically spent 200,000–300,000 euros. So this is a huge win as well, for the smaller councils that can just pick this up and run with it. So I imagine this is a part that's going to be of most interest to many of the people in this session. Governance. How does this work from a financial modelling and a management modelling point of view? So in terms of the funding, there are these four main funding streams. There are official provider subscriptions. So that's people like ourselves who pay a subscription to be acknowledged certified contributors and suppliers of LocalGov Drupal. There are voluntary council subscriptions. I say voluntary because the product is free and open source, so nobody has to pay, but councils are encouraged to take the money that they would have spent on license fees and help reinvest it in the community to develop the product. And that's based on population numbers. So the more population a council has, the more its license fee costs, on the basis that presumably the higher its tax take is. And that money goes into something called the LocalGov Drupal Community Fund, along with other extra donations, events revenues, etc., etc. And then there's other grant funding opportunities. So in the UK, for example, there was until very recently something called the Local Digital Fund. There will be, I'm sure, equivalents in Norway where people can get funding, be that from central government or other funds. So, for example, in the UK, we have the National Lottery Fund. There's probably European Union funding as well, which goes into there too. So they're the main sources of funding. The interesting thing, by the way, about the self-funding model, this council subscription model, is what we've seen is a massive increase in participation and opportunity because of that. So because councils, part of the council subscription is getting a seat at the table and driving the roadmap, which I'll talk about on the next slide, that participation generates a certain excitement that normally these organizations that may have been passive consumers of a product actually realize that they have an opportunity to drive it. And that's been hugely positive for the product as a whole. So indeed, in terms of how it is managed, it's managed by local government for local government. So there is a central association called the Open Digital Cooperative. That is a link to their website. And they provide a financial structure and some kind of governance and leadership. And they own the product, in scare quotes. They also help define a clear roadmap. So actually, if you go on the LocalGov Drupal website, you can see what the next features are going to be. You can see where the funding's going, and all of that. On the Open Digital Cooperative website, you will see that there is an elected board of directors. I think it changes every year. It has 2 members of Open Digital Cooperative, 2 members from the suppliers, and 2 members from councils, from local government. So it's a balanced board of central governance from the cooperative, some technical suppliers, so that there's actually a technical head on that board, but also, most importantly of all, 2 people representing local government. And those are the final decision makers. But there's also a whole bunch of self-organized, self-interest, special interest groups, mostly in Slack and with video conference meetings once every week or once every couple of weeks, and they'll cover all kinds of topics. There's an accessibility meetup. There's a weekly technical meetup. There are country-specific groups now. There's a French group for discussing features for the French market, so on and so forth. In terms of features, obviously a big one is internationalization. So we mentioned earlier that there's multilingual support right out of the box. There's an Austrian version of LocalGov Drupal already and a French version. If you look at both of those, certainly the French one, if you run the French distribution, it automatically pops up in French with a French language interface. So native French-speaking people can just get on and use it. The Irish example, I won't open it now because we don't have time, but that's actually in English and Gaelic. So even the base British theme, it was quite simple to add an additional language to. And I wanted to highlight localize.drupal.org, which I think is a fairly unique effort where actually for Drupal, you can actually share and crowdsource translations of the interface. So if you want LocalGov Drupal in your language, you can actually go on to localize.drupal.org, and anyone can do this. You can make an account and you can, from your website, translate strings in the interface and submit them to Drupal for approval so that they go into the language pack for the modules that you're translating. So that's an elegant solution for crowdsourcing internationalization. And this is just a quick example of the website that's in process at the moment, which is using the French version of LocalGov Drupal. We've got integrations, which is one of Drupal's strengths. It has a very powerful API, and we have a whole bunch of integrations already in LocalGov Drupal. We've got the Publications Importer, which has won a digital award recently in the UK for actually turning PDFs into HTML pages, which is very important for accessibility because PDFs are not always accessible. Waste collection services, bus timetables, election results has just been quite carefully tested by the local elections in the UK. That's worked brilliantly. And one of them is directory integrations. And indeed, by way of an example, I said earlier that LocalGov Drupal has many pre-built components. Well, this was built by one of my colleagues in France. It's just a way to show local tips, dumping places near where you live. But this took him less than a day to build, because all of the maps and search components that you see on the left-hand side there were already in LocalGov Drupal. All he had to do was hook it up to the French data.gouv data source to create this lovely map and search view, and it was super easy. So we've got extra integrations. We're doing one at the moment. We're adding bus timetables for Central Bedfordshire as one of our projects right now. So these integrations, the bolts exist. All you have to do is add in your data sources. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about quickly was digital sovereignty and how Drupal and LocalGov Drupal can help with that. So effectively, digital sovereignty is about risk management, right? So you're asking yourselves, what are the commercial risks of the systems we're using? What's the pricing model? Who owns it? Can I get suppliers? Can I take it somewhere else if I don't like where I am? And then there's the security risks as well. Can I observe the patching process? Do I know it's being done properly? Can I audit the product? Can I see that process? And in the case of a lot of closed source systems, that is not the case. And in the case of an open source system, and this is not just Drupal, of course, this is any open source system, you own your code. It can never be taken away from you. There will never be a license fee. And I think it's important to note here as well that the whole stack of Drupal is free and open source. Not just Drupal itself, but actually it sits on PHP, which is free, which runs on Linux, which is free. The database is MySQL, which is free. This is all free stuff, right? All you have to do is pay somebody to look after it, or not. You can get trained and do it yourself. You can host it wherever you want. You can use a platform. You can host it on a server under your desk. You can choose any cloud provider you like anywhere in the world. And mainly, you can work with anybody. There's a huge Drupal developer community, thousands of developers and hundreds of agencies across Europe alone. So you remove yourself from being stuck with a product. And actually also since Drupal 8, the Drupal upgrade process has been one specifically that is very, very good at allowing you to keep up to date with the latest versions of everything without having to do major transitions every time there's a new version of something that comes out. So I'm going to stop talking now. I think I'm pretty much on my 20 minutes. If you want more information, I've put a load of links in the slides, which will be shared. Without further ado, I will hand over to Esmeralda and her colleague.
Maybe you would like some more time for questions, because I love this presentation and I think you've already told a lot about Drupal, but if we do have time for questions, because I think that people that are joining in the call might have some questions for us, and maybe you can answer or we can answer.
I'm happy to. I think that the idea was to do questions all at the end, but
all at the end.
Yes, is that right, Vegard?
Yeah, that was the general idea, yes. But if someone has a burning question, we will probably find room for it.
Rickert, would you like to share? Would you like me to share?
Can you share the slides as well?
Yes, I can present in Teams. Because we have a lot of overlap, right? Because I'm Esmeralda from the Dutch government. And I brought with me Rickert and Bouke, two senior developers from our organization. And this is different from the French presentation that you've just seen, because we are part of the government. We are part of the Ministry of Economical Affairs. And Greg, you are a commercial party, right? Using open source. Yeah, so that's a slight a different. Well, I think it's an important difference to know, at least. Does it work? Oh, it doesn't work like this. Yes. So my name is Esmeralda, and I'm a product owner of one of the products that we have that is a Drupal distribution. And it's called Gov CMS, or the standard basic website for the Dutch government. And Rickert Steenbergen, hello Rickert, is our main, how do you call it, the solution architect. He knows everything, all the technical details and all the choices that we have made on a technical base. Rickert can tell you everything about it. So that's who we are. As I told you, we are from the Dutch government. It's called Directorendienst ICT-uitvoering in Dutch. We have like 100 applications in Drupal that we are running, that we have built, that we are controlling. And it's actually kind of the same level as the European Union. The European Union also has like 100 Drupal developers working on their Drupal project. So it's a very solid foundation to build stuff. We do websites, we do intranets, we do all kinds of Drupal websites, web applications. And we have like, I don't know, 60 people working on Drupal at the moment. And from a government point of view, right? I've figured out the Norwegian challenge, what you've been talking about in your government is the same talks and same subjects that are present now in our government. It's all about digital sovereignty, like how can we become self-sufficient? How can we not be depending on America or other countries? And open source is the answer for that. So I think we have a very similar challenge to face. And our solution was to turn to open source, was to turn to Drupal. And we have been working with Drupal from 2010. And it's just the open source CMS you want to go to if you have like huge applications, a lot of APIs, if you want to have multi-language. Everything that Greg just said, the benefits for Drupal, it's huge. If you compare it to, I don't know, WordPress or something else, Drupal is safe and is accessible. So we have chosen to go for Drupal. It is open source. And if you choose open source, you make sure that in your, how do you call it? If you get a market company to do your Drupal website, you just have to make sure that they honor the open source license behind it. And then you can always pick up your project and go to another supplier if you don't like it. And that's a very benefit of open source. There's no lock-in, and that's the main reason to go for open source. So you pay for your project and you won't lose it if you don't like the supplier. You can pick it up and go to the next supplier. So as Greg said, like it's got multilingual out of the box, because I read that Norwegian also has more languages, right? So you probably need that. And this is a lovely feature from Drupal. It has accessibility by default. It's got these complex permissions, these complex roles that I haven't seen in other CMSs. So it's very suitable CMS to choose for a complex web application. And one of the things that we as the government are very hard on, it has to be secure. And one of the questions that I always get about open source is who's going to maintain it? Like who's going to make sure that it's going to be safe? Like what is the, how quick can we have a patch if there is a leak? That's the bottom line, how quick can you get? And if you have a company that is providing you with the Drupal open source solution, you can put it in your agreement how fast they can react on those kind of leaks. And we just yesterday got news about a security risk in the Drupal core, and the community already has a patch for it, and it's going to be released tonight. And we are on standby to update all our products with the new release patch from the Drupal community. So that's a huge benefit from an open source large community like Drupal has. It's got like 1 million contributors, people working on a Drupal code base. So that's like, I don't even think Windows can compare with the speed that the Drupal community is having. So I would say open source is even safer than your regular code base from a closed source. And as Greg mentioned, like Drupal is used by the Austrian government already for distribution. You know, I've seen the LocalGov code base. It's lovely. It's great. I know that the Germans use it for a very long time. We use it, the European users. It's already proven. It's a very solid solution. It's a very flexible, scalable solution. So, and I put in a picture of the Drupal community from Vienna from last year, DrupalCon. Every year there's a big DrupalCon meeting, all those people joining together just to talk about the new inventions, innovations, the roadmap, everything. So I would love to invite you to join in September the 28th of this year. It's going to be a summit on the government on Monday, the 28th of September. Just come to Rotterdam. It's going to be, the summit's going to be in Rotterdam, and then DrupalCon. So join us and learn about Drupal. So that's my part of the presentation. And now I think it's time for Rickert to tell you about our product and how I think it's a bit similar like DrupalGov, but smaller, because we have been looking at Drupal LocalGov and we thought like, oh, mind blowing, this is the way to go. And we started doing something like it. Rickert, can I give you the floor?
Yeah, so we are building Drupal websites for a long time, for over 10 years. And we started out as a small team, and what we used to do is that for each project we start from scratch. And the project starts with planning and setup. So we have a meeting with the customer to do an intake. We create the architecture, then we do a design sprint to create the design of the project. After that, we set up hosting, set up CI/CD, and then we start developing. Mostly we created a custom theme where we copy parts from themes of previous similar projects, set up the content types, install modules, implement custom features, and then we deliver it to a server. There the customer can test it. And we do accessibility testing, security testing, and finally we go live. The development cycle is working in sprints and cycles. We iterate on the project in sprints of 2 or 3 weeks. But the start of the project to the time we go live takes about 3 months. And for some customers with small websites, that is a long time. And also we saw that there are a lot of manual and repetitive steps in the process. So we create same functionality, but in a bit of different way, or we don't share code between projects. Can you go to the next slide as well? Yeah, so we saw that the websites we make, they look different, but under the hood, they share the same. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, same navigation patterns, for example. Bart back. No.
We were here, and then we go here. Or do you want this?
What is the slide you see?
We see the same page structures, or maybe we can go to the same navigation patterns.
I was in another slide on my screen. Okay, so we share the same navigation patterns. In this example, you see 3 screens from 3 different websites we create, and they all have a main navigation bar with a sub-navigation. Okay, go to the next slide. Also, the page structure between the sites is pretty similar, with the page header, navigation bar, hero section, then the content section, and on the bottom the footer with the footer navigation. And also the content blocks on the page are pretty similar. In the example, you see cards we use for news blogs or some highlights, and they all have an image, title, and some text, and sometimes a button to another page. Also, frequently asked questions is a functionality we have on a lot of websites. Buttons, of course. All these content blocks have the same structure, but the only difference is that they're visually different. And also all websites have the same accessibility requirements, and because the implementation is different between the websites, it costs a lot of time to make sure that accessibility requirements are met, so that the HTML code is semantic, keyword navigation is implemented correctly, especially for menus. Text alternatives are implemented on all places. Focus states are set on interactive components, and the design is the website is responsive and adaptive to different screen sizes. Yeah, so our key insight was that websites are unique projects, but the building blocks are the same. So we thought, why are we rebuilding the same things again and again? Last year, we started implementing our Hvordan CMS Drupal platform. We started out with one code base that we roll out to multiple web applications. So we looked at our portfolio of websites. I think we have 60 to 70 Drupal websites that we maintain, and we analyzed the functionality on these websites and started creating a set of recipes that are small building blocks that deliver a certain set of functionality to our websites. For example, news functionality or some search engine optimization, password policy, all those kind of functionalities. We created recipes for that, and we applied it to our code base. We also started creating custom theme that we can use for all our websites. I come back to that a bit later. And of course, accessibility was an important aspect of implementing the system. So our platform is built on 2 open source projects. Of course, Drupal as a content management system. But for the front-end team, we adopted the NL design system. It's another open source project in the Netherlands. And it's a sort of a framework to create your own design system. It's used for the whole Dutch government. Our service area is the national government, but the NL design system is also used for municipalities, provinces, water boards, and other. I believe in the UK you call it councils. All those governmental structures can use the NL design system to create design system for their own organization, for their own government organization. But all components share the same structure and can be adapted with something called the design tokens. So we created a design system based on the NL design system. And our design system is built in pure HTML, CSS. So we built it separately from Drupal. So it's independent and can also be used for monolithic. Can be used for monolithic Drupal, so that we use in our platform, but also for decoupled websites in React or other frameworks, and other departments can use it as well. So that way we are not tied to Drupal for the component for the front-end side. So we created a generic Drupal theme based on the design system we created. We use something called single directory components, which is a pretty new Drupal concept. So we can use the same component-based approach in Drupal like we do in our design system. And in our Drupal theme, we load the component CSS from npm in our Drupal theme. And in Drupal, we use UI Suite to map Drupal fields to components from our single directory components. We also look at Drupal Canvas, which is a new concept in Drupal, which has a pretty nice interactive layout builder. We're missing some features in Drupal Canvas like multilinguality, but this is probably something we go to in the near future. Yeah, so our design system uses design tokens as the contract, and that allows us to use the same HTML structure. So in the middle of this screenshot, you see just plain HTML without markup, and just by altering design tokens, you can create either the example on the left with a green background, rounded corners, and other font, or the example on the right. So the HTML and the CSS code is in both examples is the same, but we only change the design tokens, which are variables to adapt the design. And we use Figma as a UX tool, and in Figma, a UX designer can use the same components that we use in our design system, and he can alter the design tokens and export these tokens to Git, and that allows us this without changes to the HTML and CSS code, the website can do completely different using this method. So in our platform we use Drupal recipes. And we have a simple website with a single code base, which is used for simple websites. But for custom websites, we can use the same Drupal recipes to bootstrap a new website. And each recipe provides everything that is needed to provide functionality to the website. So, for example, to add a news functionality to your website, the recipe would install all modules that are needed to provide the functionality. It creates the entity types for a news content type, overview views in Drupal, maybe some paragraph types, and it adds default settings. And this allows us to set up a new functionality very fast on the website, and it makes sure that functionality is the same on all websites that use the recipes. So the naming of the content types and the fields are the same over all websites, which makes it easier to support or theme, for example. So it's make sure our websites are much more consistent, and that there's a lot less manual work that's needed to implement a new functionality. We also invested a lot in our infrastructure. We maintain all the websites we create ourselves. So we deploy them on our own platform that we control. It's a Kubernetes-based platform based on Rancher, SUSE Rancher, and other open source projects. And for our Drupal websites, we created base container images based on PHP, but with some extensions that are needed to run our Drupal websites. We also have a generic CI/CD pipeline with all kinds of checks and tests that are executed before a website is delivered to the platform. We created Helm charts, which are templates to deploy an application on Kubernetes, and we adopted a GitOps approach. So our whole infrastructure configuration is also in source code, which makes it easy to rebuild the entire environment from source, but also changes to the infrastructure are made in the same way as normal code changes. So we can create a merge request to change an infrastructural component, and another colleague can review that before it is deployed to the cluster. So some functionality that we currently have in our project are landing pages, regular information pages, news and events, media library, workflow, and search engine based on Solr, and some accessibility tools. All of this is composed of core or contributed Drupal modules, but for all these functionalities, we have recipes to create that to add that functionality to a website. Next slide. In our basic website, we also have some templates to create certain pages. For example, a news page. And when a editor creates a new page, he can use different layout options and compose a page from different building blocks. We use paragraphs for that. We used Mercury editor to provide a visual drag and drop interface to our editors. Next slide. So an editor can add all kinds of blocks to a page. For example, some regular text, but also a table of contents, a section with latest news, and in the section you can use taxonomy terms to determine what news items are shown in that component. We have charts, maps, timelines, media, and yeah, this list of blocks keeps on growing. We add new functionality all the time that we use. Yeah, so we built a generic code base with the same code base that is rolled out for multiple simple websites. And in this code base, we have some pre-installed recipes that are used for all websites that use this basic website. And when a customer wants to use this basic website, we can deploy it in like 10 minutes. So we have an install wizard where we set the name of the project, temporary URL, and some mandatory settings. You can set some design tokens, the name of the ministry, that kind of settings, and then we push a button, and there's all automatically create the website is automatically deployed to Kubernetes cluster, and it is live in 10 minutes. And we have an environment for a Drupal website that is ready to go to production. All that's left to do is for an editor is to add his own content. So for organizations of customers that only need a basic functionality, we can deliver a Drupal website very fast, based on with pretty much functionality. But for custom websites, so for customers which have some more demanding needs, like API connections, other integrations, we can set up the base for the website also very fast. So we can use the same for the foundation with all the recipes, and build on that. So that allows us to focus on the needs that the customer has for his project, instead of reinventing the wheel for functionality that we have built all the time. So it allows us to start out much faster. Last year in November, we submitted our project to the Drupal Splash Awards in the Netherlands, and we were nominated in 2 categories, and we won in the category government, which is nice. Yeah, so final takeaway, so share more. We used to our teams used to do a lot in the team itself, but now with our central platform, there's a lot more sharing between the teams, and we also are very busy to add all our recipes to Drupal.org, so that they're open source for everybody to use, and standardize more, reinvent less, and a lot of automation helps. So if you can automate something, automate it.
Yeah, thank you all for the presentation. Thank you, Rekker. That's very good presentation. Thank you very much. I think it's from a technical point of view, it's clear that Drupal has a lot of options, and it has you can go very far. But just as Vegard just said, we are looking into publishing our code base to Drupal.org, which means it will be available for markets, companies, and other countries and everything. And we are looking at LocalGov to see how their governance is working, and if we can copy paste and use your setup and see how we can get the finances going. How can you publish something and govern it and get the merge request from the public into your project and keep it safe, stuff like that. We are very much looking at the LocalGov for this, because you have been, for years and years, you've been running a distribution. So thank you all for your attention, and let's the questions begin.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thanks, Greg, Rickard, Esmeralda. It was very interesting. Just a small practical thing. I see that we've set to 10. That's not a hard limit from our part, from the organizers' part. But if you want to hang around, please do. We have some questions. And but before the questions, I'll also just say that we in the Drupal Norway, we're very eager to like continue this discussion and yeah, how could a thing like this look in Norway? So we would like to continue both with yeah, potential clients or users, end users, and also bureaus and service owners or yeah, relevant parties. Yeah, so we do have some questions. I'll take them just from the start. They're in the chat, but I'll read them up. So the first question we had, I guess, is for Greg mostly. So what percentage of the 70+ users of the LocalGov platform pay the voluntary fee?
Yeah, so I'd have to double check that with Will, but I believe that they're not mentioned on the website unless they're paying. So I think it's 100%, and there's probably more than 73 councils. That's just 73 councils that have put their hand up and are officially mentioned on the website. So I need to verify that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Yeah, that's great. Next question, also one I personally find very interesting. So if Norwegian municipalities or Gov entities of some kind want to go this direction, the Gov UK Dutch way, where should we start, and who should own the startup and pull the strings to get started? Yeah, and parentheses, easier to add on new municipalities as it develops. So, but yeah, how do you start this?
How do you start? Yeah. So in the UK, it was Esmeralda may have more ideas on this, I'm sure. But in the UK, it was a bit of a happy coincidence that a few things happened together. So there was the Brighton-Croydon collaboration, but then the digital lead at Croydon at that time was ex-central government. And he had run government digital services for a little while, so he was very aware and in tune with the direction that government wanted to take with the push towards open source software and so on and so forth. So he used Croydon's name and weight to push for central government funding, and so they achieved they got quite a lot of money from central government to create the initial product, which was finished around about 2021. I think somebody else asked a question of how long did it take to get from 0 to 70 councils. I'd say about 5 years, but things really started to get going after a couple of years. So the initial idea was in 2018. It took a couple of years for Brighton and Croydon to finish their respective projects. Then there was a significant round of central government funding that was facilitated by Croydon and Neil Williams, who was ex-GDS, now Croydon's CTO, and that was finished around 2021. And after that, things began to accelerate. It started to get pushed. So, for example, I myself organised with AWS a big event in London. We had hundreds of councils come to that, and we really made people aware of the product and things like that. So there was a big marketing effort 21, 22, and little by little, as websites expired, as things came up, local governments started to and continue to seriously consider LocalGov Drupal when it's time to renew their website. So we're still seeing, I think we've got 5 or 6 sales opportunities open for new LocalGov Drupal websites since January. So there's still a lot of momentum. That's going to be over 100 websites before the end of 2026. I would not be surprised. So yeah, how would you do it? I think my view is, in an ideal world, it probably would be funded by central government, a bit like Esmeralda's team. And I don't think anybody should have any illusion about how much the initial effort is going to cost. I think there needs to be a significant, sensible budget to set something rolling. But if that then genuinely becomes a shared platform amongst dozens and dozens of departments, regions, councils, etc., whatever you call them, whatever your business units are, then the saving, I think, would be enormous. But it will take an injection of energy from person or people, probably centrally based, and a decent amount of political will and a sensible amount of money as well, to get initial traction, because LocalGov Drupal had all of those things, thanks to Will Callahan and Neil Williams working together to secure that central government money at the start. I don't know if you want to add anything, Esmeralda.
Yeah, I think ideally, as you said, the central government, there would be an open source program manager or something that would initiate, like, hey, everybody's building their own web applications. Let's do it as a group and organize the group, because the energy goes into setting up this network, this community. But I also see that there's like one big council, or in our part, a government organization that wants a digital project, a web application, has a funding for it, like, they're going to build it, but then they need to make the political decision to share it. And I think there used to be very hesitant, like, we paid for it, it's ours. And nowadays, because of the digital autonomy, a sovereignty question, we see that these kinds of organizations are now actually looking like, maybe we should share, maybe we should publish. And I see it in the councils, and the Amsterdam Council is huge in this. They've put people together and sharing the revenues. So it's possible, but there needs to be a change in mindset from the politicians, from those large organizations that are already paying for these kind of applications. They just need to share it. And then you can have a government governance structure behind it. And I'm very interested in the LocalGov setup to have a foundation behind it. In our case, we won't have a foundation. Dicte is going to be the owner of the platform, and we have to be very careful. Like, how are we going to get markets? How do you call it? Going to get the agencies, the Drupal agencies, on board without giving one more benefits than the other. Like, it's going to be a very political sensitive subject. We need to figure that one out. But if you're going to look at starting up, it's just about a political decision, and have somebody stand up and say, like, I'm going to carry this. I'm going to do it.
So I think it's an interesting point that in the UK, it's not government, it's a private organization. And it is by necessity, because somebody has to manage the product. And so basically what happened was Will and Finn being one of the lead developers from the start of the LocalGov Drupal project, kind of suddenly realized that LocalGov Drupal was bigger than them, and they needed some kind of governance. And that's where Open Digital Cooperative was born. And it's kind of a sticking plaster. It probably would have been much better if government digital services had owned LocalGov Drupal from the beginning. Having said that, I suppose being a private organization does remove a political element and make it a bit easier to do things like run supplier networks and so on and so forth. So you could cut it either way. I don't know, but yeah, in the case of the UK, the private association was set up to provide that management structure where central government did not provide it.
Good. Yeah, but someone should probably own it. That's for sure. Yeah. I think you also touched on the next question, like what was the general timeline going from 2 to 70. So I'll just skip that. We had a sidetrack in Norwegian. There was a question about is the NL design system the same as the Norwegian design system? And the answer is yes. But I was wondering, could you just say something briefly about the importance of having national design systems, or is it important, or has there been struggles having, say, France and UK having different design systems? Yeah, just if you have some brief comments on that.
So from a Dutch perspective, we struggle a lot with it. So some countries have their own design systems. Like France has a very nice design system. I don't know the Norwegian design system, but in the Netherlands we don't have it. So there are some branding guidelines for Dutch government websites, but there's no implementation in HTML, CSS for all websites, and that therefore all government websites look a bit different. But also that's just the national government, central government, we call it. But other governmental organizations like provinces, municipalities, they often have their own branding and may have their own design system. So in the Netherlands, the NL design system is a framework that supports this different design system. So it's not just one design system, but it's a collection of design system with estafette-based approach. Organizations can share components between design systems, but they can also build components for their own design system. So yeah, because there was no central design system for the Dutch government, we decided to create our own version of it.
But Rikke, a quick follow-up on that. The implementation you have of your design system, is it so that a designer does an approved change in Figma and then it propagates out to all sites using that component?
Eventually it does. So in Figma, the designers create their components. New components need to be built in HTML and CSS. So with the UX design in Figma, then we have a project on GitHub that contains our HTML and CSS code implementation. So a front-end developer implements the component in HTML and CSS, and it uses design tokens as the contract, and these design tokens are used in are the same design tokens that are used in Figma and HTML and CSS. So when the components exist, the UX designer can alter a design token in Figma and export these design tokens to the GitHub project, which contains HTML CSS code, and then these design tokens are automatically converted to CSS variables, and then these new variables can be distributed to NPM, so they can be used in all sites that use the component.
Perfect. Okay, let me see if I forgot something. We have some very technical questions about schema.org, JSON Ali. I think we'll just skip them for now because we can take them after, but we're a bit out of time. And there's also a question, where is the discussion basically after this? So I'll say Drupal discussions are often in the Drupal Slack. We have our Drupal Norway Slack, or we have the Drupal Slack. So please join there. I think that's a good idea. If you don't have it, send an email to me or Helge or styret@drupal.no, and then we'll guide you or find some forums where we all can participate in it. I think that
we will hang back here for a while afterwards.
Yeah. Me and Helge and anyone who wants can hang back here, but I think that, or with that, I think we will just say that the presentation is over. Thank you all for presenting. It was super interesting, and thank you all for coming. I will now end the recording session of this, so whatever is said after is not recorded. Just find the button. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. And for those who want to stay, please stay. For those who want to or need to leave,
yes,
you're free to leave.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. See you in Rotterdam, DrupalCon. Yay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
I was just gonna, I don't know if